Good afternoon and welcome to the third edition of Arcview Explorers, where we take you, the audience, behind the scenes of some of the most well-known cannabis companies. I'm Sarah Falvo, Manager of Member Experience here at the Arcview Group. Arcview is celebrating 10 years of being the premier investment and research network in the cannabis industry. We truly believe that the development of a responsible, profitable, and politically engaged legal cannabis industry is the best path to becoming successful. We're so happy to have you here and learning about all of the access that Arcview Group is able to provide. For today's program, we're taking a trip to Northern California to visit with DarkHeart, the leading California-based cannabis genomics, diagnostics, and applied biotechnology company. Since 2007, DarkHeart has specialized in cultivating high-quality clones from popular and emerging lines for commercial and retail customers across California. They've always had a strong focus on research, plant genetics, and pathology, and recently opened up a 70,000 square foot production and research nursery facility in Half Moon Bay. This facility will enable DarkHeart to meet the continued and growing demand for seedlings, teens, and clones. DarkHeart CEO and founder Dan Grace will take us behind the scenes and into the nursery, where he will walk us through some history of the company, tell us about some exciting projects launching, and also participate in an interactive Q&A at the second half of the program. Having started in the space as a farmer himself and having worked alongside farmers throughout the state for more than a decade, Dan has dedicated himself and the company to solving the problems confronting cannabis farmers by applying modern biotechnology. Throughout the program, please feel free to drop any questions into the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the second half of the program. And with that, I'd love to introduce Dan, who's in Half Moon Bay to start this DarkHeart journey.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Sarah, and welcome everyone to our new Half Moon Bay production facility. I'm standing here live in Bay 13 of the new facility, and you could probably see some of the production work happening behind me. Some of you might be aware we have a long partnership with Arcview. We were one of the first companies to invite members in to tour our facility all the way back in 2015. So while we would love to be bringing you in today to tour the facility, we're also eager to pilot this new format with Arcview Group, and we hope that you guys enjoy the presentation. You know, one of the things about the tours that we've given over the years that we found most valuable to attendees has been introducing some of our team members. So we're going to focus a little bit on that today, introduce you guys to some of the team, have them talk about what they do and why it's so important to the company and to the industry. It's been, for us and the rest of the industry in the world, it's been, even by cannabis industry standards, quite a year. We opened this facility just before we came into the COVID era. We went into a lockdown throughout the Bay Area and everything that came with that. I'm happy to say that our team performed really remarkably well through all of that. And as a result, we're having quite a standout year as a company. We're trending up. We've introduced a couple of new product lines, and we're now trending up 45% year over year on revenue, putting us on track to do $9 million this year, which is a great success story for us. We do have a financing open. If you're interested, I'd be eager to hear from you after the event. Please reach out to me directly. We do a lot at DarkHeart that we've built over the years. Our nursery division offers a variety of plants. We have over 200 in the library, and we can produce those in many different configurations: teens, clones, tissue culture plantlets, seedlings, all to meet specific grower needs. Our sciences division has deep expertise in diagnostics, pathology, tissue culture, and genetics. And through that work, they offer diagnostic screening, disease identification and eradication, tissue culture services, and other consulting services. We've also this year, in the middle of the pandemic, introduced to the market our new line of branded consumer packaged flower that really highlights the historic and ongoing work that DarkHeart does in the genetic space. But with all of this going on, I'm frequently asked, what is the theme that ties the company together? What's the mission that kind of drives all of this? And to understand it, I think it's interesting to go back to the founding of the company. For us, that was 13 years ago. So if you'll bear with me and imagine, the year is 2007. It's the end of the Bush administration. For my co-founding partner and I, we were both 24 years old. I don't know if you remember what it was like to be 24 years old, but I do, and it was a heady experience. We were confident, self-assured, naive, and we thought, we found this cannabis space because we thought it would be the great combination of our two passion areas. We were social activists on the one front, and we also had a deep passion and interest in botany and plant cultivation. So, like many at the time, we jumped in by leasing a little split-story craftsman house in East Oakland. And we set about to turn that into a production facility. Now, I had done all the back of the envelope math, and as a nice side effect, I figured by the time we were 30, we were going to be retired. Of course, nothing could have been farther from the truth. We went through every imaginable problem that you could encounter as a grower. I remember one night distinctly, I was, crawled under this crawl space in this little house. I was trying to figure out how this electromagnetic timer worked so that our lights would work, right? I'm under there for hours and hours. Like, I remember distinctly just being covered in dust and cobwebs and like cursing the gods, right? Because I knew that probably just down the street, there was, a licensed electrician who knew exactly what the answer to my problem was and could probably fix it in 5 minutes. And I knew that if I picked up the phone to call him, he wouldn't take my call. He certainly wouldn't take the business because, we were in the weed industry. This wasn't something that people would help with back then. If you were a grower in the space, you were on your own to figure it out. We did eventually figure it out. And we went through the rest of that cycle with that house, encountering challenge after challenge, just like that. We barely got out of it with the shirts on our backs. And Sarah and I, we sat and we reflected after that experience, and we thought, geez, this was a lot different and a lot harder than we thought it was going to be. Do we want to continue on in the space? If so, do we want to do something different? And as we were having that conversation, I reflected back to that night that I spent in the crawl space. And I thought about all of the other farmers that were in the space having the same experience, encountering challenges that they didn't have the resources to solve, that they didn't know how to solve, and struggling alone in the dark to solve those problems themselves. And that was, we thought maybe instead of continuing down this cultivation path, we could help those farmers out. We could focus on solving their problems. And that kernel really became the nugget in the mission that has driven the industry since then. That's really helped us focus on solving the problems of farmers by introducing innovative products and services in the space. It's taken us in a lot of directions, and it's especially been important that we focus on our sciences division. And I look forward to introducing you to some more of that work today. But with that, we've prepared a little video reel for you to give you an overall sense of the company and what we're all about. Change is really the name of the game for us at Dark Heart and throughout the industry. It's who is nimble enough, agile enough, flexible enough, innovative enough, and forward-thinking enough to adapt to the monumental changes that come at us on a regular basis in cannabis.
Dark Heart opened Half Moon Bay because we really needed to expand in order to meet the demand and to remain a key player in this industry. It's an agricultural community. It's been really refreshing to really feel part of that community that we've always been a part of, but haven't been taken seriously.
I'm Nick Jackson, and I'm the lead engineer here at the production facility in Half Moon Bay. So my background comes from mainly vertical farm design in New York City, where I worked for a company doing build-outs and designs of indoor facilities in New York. So being able to integrate, more advanced technologies into plant care and plant health is something that's really exciting.
What I think is important about the work that we're doing at Dark Heart is that cannabis is a crop that has not been developed in the way that corn or soybeans or wheat or anything else have been developed for, in some cases, hundreds of years now. We have an opportunity in cannabis to take this very interesting, very productive, very useful plant and really bring it into the 21st century. We can focus on how do we solve these grower challenges? How do we make the plant more pest and disease resistant? How do we make it more productive? How can we bring out these terpenes and these cannabinoids that have more medical benefits to users? I'm so excited about the new Dark Heart branded line of flowers and pre-rolls. They're broken up into 3 product lines. We call them Legends, Head Stash, and Breeder's Choice. And it's all about the work that we've done in genetics. Legends highlights the work that we've done historically to commercialize and popularize varietals that have now become household names. Stuff like Blue Dream or Purple Kush. The Head Stash line focuses on the work that we're doing right now to commercialize and introduce to the market emerging, interesting new varietals, sometimes in partnership with other breeders in the space. The Breeder's Choice line of products focuses on the work that we're doing to introduce new and innovative varietals in the space. It's really cutting edge stuff that you'll probably only find one time. Interesting smells, interesting aromas, flavors, stuff like that.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jeremy Warren. I'm Director of Plant Health at Dark Heart Nursery. So one of our priorities at Dark Heart Nursery is to set up a clean plant program for cannabis. And the way we do that is we test for pathogens like the hop latent viroid that we detected, other known pathogens in cannabis, so that we can provide our growers with plants that are equal to what would be produced at a university or a government facility. We have a long history in working with growers, and we have a really good understanding of what kind of issues they're facing in their own grows. Traditional cannabis breeders have done an excellent job in designing consumer traits that people like and like feelings from, right? They make really good flowers, super crazy high THC, CBD varieties, And I think what's kind of been missed since, cannabis wasn't, studied at universities is a lot of the agronomic traits, right? So one of our focus is going to be making plants that are really easy for growers to grow, right? Disease-resistant plants, things that growers can put into their facilities, grow and not have to worry about as much, right? So really grower-friendly breeding targets for our program.
Basically, we've been running Dark Heart strains since we started growing. For us as commercial growers, we don't have time to do breeding and do our own propagation. That's a whole thing. It's a whole nother part of your business. Commercial cultivation is, it's about streamlining, it's about efficiency. If we didn't have Dark Heart, we would have to spend a ton of money developing our own propagation in our own nursery, and that's licenses that we don't have, that's space we don't have, that's resources we don't have, that's people we don't have. Dark Heart's like an extension of our business. Basically, Dark Heart is our starting line. It starts with that phone call, ends with the in packaging to the consumer. So the first step is Dark Heart.
When you go with Dark Heart, you get really a lot more than just the plant itself. You get our 12 years of experience and the support of everyone who works at Dark Heart. Hey guys, welcome back. As you can see, we're now in the conference room. A little technical difficulty there, but glad we could rejoin you. It's interesting. In the video, I mentioned our 12 years of history. It's a little outdated. It's actually been 13 years now. And over that amount of time, especially in the cannabis industry, you have a lot of experience as an entrepreneur. As with any entrepreneur, we talk a lot about our wins, and we sort of highlight them as notches in our belt. And, for us, we have a lot of those experiences. For us, it might be, the day that we the day that I signed the lease on our first commercial warehouse facility, or the day that after years and years of activism and political work, we finally passed Prop 64 here in California. And I distinctly remember the first time back in 2018 when we got our first official state-issued license to produce nursery products and distribute them throughout California, which was such a huge deal for us after operating for almost a decade, actually a little more than a decade in the gray market. But I think if you really drilled in with any entrepreneur, they would tell you that the defeats stick with you even more than the wins. For me, I'll never forget the day that we lost our best customer. It was 3 or 4 years ago. And this customer had been with us since very early on with the company. They had been growing their business over the years, and we connected with them. They really loved the high quality plants that we were producing, which helped them produce better and better yields. And they especially liked this strain called Fire OG, which was a kind of a dark heart classic. This strain would produce really exceptional yields for indoor growers. And there was a huge consumer demand for it, especially in the Southern California market. They just loved this fuely OG flower that they were producing. So with this partner, we'd connected and we'd become an integral part of their operation. They were able to produce bumper crops and get really healthy wholesale prices for their product. And that success helped them grow over the years to 2 and 3 and 4 warehouses here in Oakland. It was a really great synergistic collaboration. I got the call, early one morning in the fall, and I remember seeing the number come up, and I knew that it was bad news. I was finishing my coffee, and this customer, we had been working with them for several months now. They had been having some issues with their grow that they couldn't diagnose, and we were struggling to diagnose. Their yield was decreasing. What they were seeing was each crop, they would have some plants that failed to perform. They wouldn't produce very much yield, very many buds. And what they did produce had very poor THC, very bad terpene characteristics. And try as we might, we couldn't diagnose what was going on for them. It had started off as 1 or 2 plants. Then it was a few percentage of their crop. Then it was 5%. Then it was 10%. When I picked up the phone and talked to the customer, he told me, "Look, Dan, we just did our most recent harvest, and we're at 20% losses. At this point, there's no way we can make a profit with losses like this, and we're going to have to go elsewhere and try to find something else to meet our needs." I thanked him for his business, and I told him I totally understood the decision, and I wished him well, and hung up the phone. This was a really big challenge for us. That call caused me to realize that we really, really needed to invest in understanding this problem more. We had already been doing some work on it. Internally, we were working to diagnose the issues, and we were looking all over the industry to understand what might be going on. Turned out that this was an issue that was industry-wide. We were getting reports of it all over California. We were seeing it on message boards. People were talking about it. And there were all these sort of folk tales about what might be going on. People would call it dudding or yellowhead, genetic drift. No one was really quite sure what might be happening. I was convinced that most of the explanations out there weren't really the truth. And I suspected strongly that we were dealing with a plant pathogen. But the technology out there, the research and everything that was out there to tell us what it was just didn't exist. The support wasn't out there in the cannabis space. So that's when I said, look, we got to get to the bottom of this, and we've got to research. We've got to invest in the research to understand what is causing this issue. And that initiative led me to meet Dr. Jeremy Warren, who we've since been able to bring on full-time to lead our plant sciences division. And he'll tell you a little bit about what ended up being the culprit, how we identified it, and how we eventually solved it.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's interesting. When we first had that phone call at least 3 years ago, I was still working for the startup I helped co-fund in the diagnostic space after I finished my PhD at UC Davis. And when I hung up the phone with Dan, I immediately knew it was a plant pathogen. And so the ones that popped to my head were either virus or viroid. And in talking with Dan, it seemed like people in this industry had been working on this problem for 4 or 5 years. And so there have been a lot of traditional techniques that were done to try to figure out what it was, and all of them failed. So I realized right away we'd have to use some cutting-edge technologies such as RNA sequencing, bioinformatics, to figure out what's causing this dudding disease. And so by utilizing those techniques, we were able to figure out that hop latent viroid was the cause of dudding disease in about 2 months. And within 6 months, we had a diagnostic test, and we had a cure for the disease using tissue culture methods. And when we look back at that, I think that's one good example of how Dark Heart understands the problems in the industry and how we can use cutting edge technology to help solve those problems for the cannabis industry. Because when I started, they had already had California's first tissue culture lab. So for 5 years before I even got here, they were on the cutting edge of cannabis tissue culture. So they worked out all the techniques that are needed to produce plants and tissue culture for the cannabis industry and in-house. And so when I came, we also noticed that, as Dan mentioned earlier, there wasn't really any sort of lab that cannabis growers could go to in the plant health space to help them solve problems. And so since I've come on, we've started the first cannabis-specific plant diagnostics lab in the industry. We have also opened up our tissue culture program. And the way we look at tissue culture at Dark Heart is part of a greater clean plant program, right? You need to use the diagnostics, the R&D, tissue culture all together to help create the best, cleanest genetics you can to provide to your growers. And so we in-house call this a clean plant program. These types of clean plant programs are usually handled by universities and government facilities. So without there being university and government research for so long, it's a no-brainer that we can go in there and do things right, do things the correct way to provide clean plants throughout the industry. And I think these are just the first few steps, as far as the R&D can take us in cannabis. And if we think ahead, we have such a long 13-year experience in working with growers, talking with growers, understanding the problems they're facing and growing their crops. And it's really a definer for us. And so in talking with them, we quickly realized that a lot of these problems can only be solved through breeding. And we are very excited at Dark Heart to actually announce the start of our in-house breeding program. And, when we're looking at the problems that growers always have issues with, it's always pests, diseases, things that traditionally in big ag are solved through breeding plants. And so we're excited to announce we brought on Dr. Kay Watt as our head breeder. Currently, she has over 25 breeding programs ongoing in order to help solve these grower problems, and specifically around crop health. Because in cannabis, there's only depending on your state, there's only 30 or so, plant health protection products you can apply to plants. And so we're really limited. A lot of the pesticides that are used in traditional ag to, take care of pests like spider mites or fungi, right? Those are tested for at the flower stages. So you can't apply them at any point during the growing phase. So there's a huge need to get plants that are super easy for growers to grow and can still provide the same commercial, properties that the customers are excited about. And I really see this as the future of Dark Heart Nurseries. We built our name and legacy on these providing premium genetics throughout the cannabis space. Our breeding and R&D program will take that up to the next level and provide the next generation of genetics for cannabis growers throughout the state of California. And so, obviously, we'd love to have you out. You can check out the breeding program firsthand. We're really excited about some of the targets like, hybrid seed for the industry, exciting new clonal varieties coming out of our breeding program. And please take some time to come on out to Dark Heart. We can show you firsthand the exciting things that we're working on for the future. With that, I'll turn it back to Dan.
Yeah. No, that breeding program is a real game changer for us. As we're now in like this regulated market, the challenges that we're seeing growers confront become challenges of commercial production. To your point, Jeremy, the pest management, having commercially viable yields, right, that can start to drive production costs down. These become the big challenges. And, although we work to solve those problems downstream from the plants, this is really an opportunity to go upstream and create more elegant solutions for the farmers. So, and what's great about that for Dark Heart is, our proximity to the growers over the years and our deep science expertise already, especially coming out of the tissue culture lab, helps us not only know exactly the problems to solve, but also gives us the right tools to create a strong breeding program, bringing in all that big genetic library that we have, and then using some of our molecular tools out of the lab to really accelerate that breeding timeline, which is going to be a big standout for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And then like the speed to which we get the products to market, right? I mean, we can do R&D, make clones, and we have the customer base already to trial those with us and to sell them too. Yeah. It's very exciting from a research perspective, for sure.
No, it's great. We've solved some of the most important problems of yesterday, and now we're excited to solve some of the biggest challenges growers are confronting today and tomorrow. Well, with that, we're eager to kick it over to you guys. Sarah, I understand we might have some questions from the audience, and we're happy to field them.
Absolutely. And, thank you both so much for walking us through all of that background and information. And Dan, we've known each other for a couple of years, and, it's been so great to watch the exploding growth of Dark Heart just over time. So, and just anecdotally, I remember recently visiting a very well-known dispensary, and they were explaining that they could not keep your plants on the shelf just because the demand for home growing has become so high. So, it's exciting for us, especially at Arcview, just to kind of see all the shift of consumer demand in real time. So it's been really interesting. So we do have a number of questions from the audience. So I'd love to start with this one. Can you walk us through the various plants you make and who the ideal customers are for each type?
Absolutely. No, that's a really interesting one, and one that's probably like really exciting for us right now, especially just having opened our new production facility, because we're really able to broaden our product portfolio way beyond what it had been in the past. Our classic product that's still very popular at dispensaries and among many of our customers is like a clone. If you've toured us before, you've probably seen us producing this product. Comes in a configuration like this typically. You can see it's got this is packaged for retail here, so it's got our nice retail label and some information about the plants that you're taking home. These are very much like going to a garden center and buying some tomato seedlings or something like that. And again, still real popular across the spectrum. One of the cool products we're talking a little bit about our breeding program. Part of what goes into that is seed-based production, which we're really bullish on. That product is more like this. Now, this is also a retail packaged seedling tray. So you can see it's got our varietal information here. But if you drill in, I'll pull one out. You can see it's a smaller plug. This one's an auto flower seedling, so it's able to flower regardless of your light cycle. It's pretty interesting, really easy for an outdoor grower or a hobbyist grower, because they don't have to worry too much about when they plant it or the right light cycle for planting it. So a lot going on there, and a much more cost-effective product to produce and to buy. Jeremy's got some of our teen configurations, which are really, really popular right now. So these are, we call this like a 1 gallon teen configuration. It's a bigger plant. And these are offered both at retail and in commercial for growers that are really looking to get a jump start on their crop. The hobbyists like them because, again, they're easier, especially, right now we're a little bit later in the season. So if you're behind in planting or if you lost some plants at the early part of the season, this is a great way to catch up. And of course, we do offer the, this one's, Jeremy's showing me, this is a really unique and interesting varietal they call the Freak Show. I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but it has this very fascinating leaf. It's like a complex leaf with almost looks like a fern or something like that. And we're excited to pilot this. This is mostly a hobbyist product, for backyard growers and stuff like this. I almost think of this as an ornamental crop. It looks great, behind your other flowers and stuff like that in the garden, but still makes really good finished wheat. So it's kind of a win-win. And of course, we also produce plants out of the tissue culture lab, which you'll see up here. So we, what's cool is like we sort of have expertise across the spectrum of plants, and we can offer the right product for the right customer.
That's great. And I was actually reading up about the Freak Show plant that you have. So interesting. So I love that you're being so creative with everything as well. So the next question is, what processes do you use to ensure plants go out pesticide and disease-free?
Jeremy, that might be a good one for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as a nursery, providing clean plants to our customers is one of the top priorities that we have to deal with. And so I think, what we do in-house is we have an in-house screening program for the most, common pathogens in cannabis. So obviously the top of that list is hop latent viroid. So every single one of our teens that becomes a mom is screened for hop latent viroid on an ongoing basis. So every week we're screening our plants for the hop latent virus presence, so we can ensure that we're not giving, plants infected with those materials to, as part of our plant material. We also screen for, common fungal pathogens like Fusarium, Pythium, Phytophthora, things that can affect the roots and structures. And so, it's very important to have an ongoing monitoring program, not just for plant pathogens like fungi, bacteria, and viruses, but also for insects as well. So we also have a fully integrated IPM program. So we treat and use, biopesticides and also beneficial insects for the control of common insect pests on cannabis. And we have basically a weekly screening program for everything in our garden. And before it gets shipped out, we also have hands on every plant to ensure that there's no pests or pathogens making it out of our facility.
Yeah, that's a really standout. We're on 100% inspection on the plants that are leaving the facility, so everything gets hand checked for pests and disease and quality.
That's so important to have clean cannabis, that's for sure. Now, in terms of IP protection, do you provide any if someone's interested in submitting trade name genetics?
Yeah, I can handle this one too. And so, people always ask us if they want to bring, plants into the tissue culture program to either, reinvigorate those genetics or to cure the hop latent viroid. How do I know you're not just going to take and steal our genetics? That's always a big question in the industry. And so we have a very robust, NDA that we provide our customers, let them see it ahead of hand. It outlines like, these are your genetics. They stay separate from our plants while they're in tissue culture. You control those. If you'd like to sell them through us, of course you can. If you want to keep them proprietary and you just want healthy, clean plants out the other side, we can also do that. So we're very upfront about how we treat our customers' genetics.
Great. Thank you for answering that. And the next question is, do you have any specific strains that are better suited for desert conditions, since a number of Southern California cultivators are growing in that type of environment?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and one that we will especially look forward to addressing with the breeding program. One of the cool things we can do with breeding is we can really start to adapt varietals for more specific climatic areas where, cannabis either hasn't traditionally been grown or where it hasn't been really optimized to grow. So, adapting it for drought conditions, for example, will be, I think, one really important thing. And what's cool about that is you suddenly open up commercial opportunity in places that it didn't previously exist. If we can take the possible range of cultivation and extend it out, all of a sudden we're creating more opportunity for the industry, for more entrepreneurs, and ultimately creating a more efficient industry. Most of the customers that we have that are operating in the desert right now are operating out of controlled environment situations. So for those, we're there are a couple of varietals that do very, very well. You know, those OGs still are favorites. And it's actually, you know, I talked about that Fire OG cut. That's one, you know, knowing that that varietal was so successful and how much people loved it, that was actually one of the first varietals that we brought back once Jeremy helped us identify hop latent viroid, and we could demonstrate that we had cured it. So we're seeing a big resurgence for some of those genetics that had their popularity had waned because they were not performing anymore. Growers are really enjoying bringing them back and getting that commercial production of the strains they used to know and love.
Yeah, and Fire OG is one of the strains that's hit hardest by hop latent viroids. I think you see a lot of that where the production declined hugely, and once you clean out the pathogen problem, it's right back up where it should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. And, you know, bringing back the OGs, I love that.
Bringing back the OG.
That's right. So when did you pivot to providing plants geared towards home growers? Can you walk us through that story?
You know, what's interesting is the retail channel was really our first channel. You have to kind of close your eyes and imagine back 13 years ago, the industry was, you know, still gray market. Of course, we had adult use here in California since 1996, but there was never a comprehensive set of regulations. So it was all still very, you know, underground, certainly by today's standards. And the only real permitted part of the supply chain was the retail point of the supply chain. So that was kind of considered the safe spot for everyone in the industry. And for us as a nursery producer, the best way we knew how to comply with the laws at the time and to protect ourselves as a grower was to use that retailer as our intermediary. So we set up some of the first relationships there at retail. You know, Harborside Health Center here in Oakland was one of our first retail partners. And we really grew this tremendous retail nursery business over the years. And to this day, we get, you know, we'll go meet with head cultivators at commercial grows and stuff like that. And they'll have these like really interesting stories about waiting overnight in a parking lot to get their Dark Heart clones when they started their crop season. So we've always been there. What's interesting is that it's morphed, you know, especially in the regulated environment. We now serve those commercial growers in a business to business relationship. But what's happened is with adult use, we've seen more people sort of coming into that retail space as hobbyist growers. You know, maybe they're like me, sort of just passionate about horticulture generally and interested in growing a couple of cannabis plants in their backyard. Maybe they're a consumer that's sensitive to the high prices in the market, and they want to grow a couple of plants in the backyard for a head stash, a little cheap way to get some cannabis of their own. So, and then of course, you know, with COVID, that's just really gone through the roof. I mean, even our normal garden centers are getting swamped right now with people just trying to grow anything. Everyone's stuck at home and people want something tangible to touch and grow and smell. And boy, there's nothing better than watching some cannabis plants growing off of your back porch.
That is so true. And kind of piggybacking off of that, do you have any advice for home growers? I mean, personally, this week I just lost two of my ladies to mites. So I would appreciate any advice that you could provide us, and I'm sure the audience would as well.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. You know, the number one piece of advice I give to backyard growers is, you know, put into it what you want to get out of it, and no more and no less. You know, for some of our customers, they're just passionate, you know, and super focused, and you know, they're hobbyists, and they really want to get in there and understand everything about the plant and optimize their yields and optimize the fertilizer. And for those customers, I say go for it. You know, drill in, read everything you can, and really hone it. For a lot of other growers, you know, they're worried about doing a good job or maybe doing it wrong. And for them, I say, you know, it doesn't have to be all of that. You know, if what you can spend on it is 30 minutes a week in your backyard, then fine. You know, find a nice place with full sunlight. Give it some good compost. Stick it in your backyard. put it on a dripper so you don't forget to water it, and see what happens, So don't stress out about it. 9 times out of 10, it's going to do all right. Now, Sarah, for your problem for spider mites, there are a couple of solutions. You get a problem like that. Of course, we have some tips on our website as well. But I always recommend a horticultural oil. If you come in every couple of weeks or something like that with a horticultural oil like a neem or another oil like that and give it a nice spray, that tends to keep the spider mites in particular down.
Great. Thank you so much. And fingers crossed that my next harvest will actually happen. So tell me a little bit about what is on the horizon for Dark Heart. Any upcoming launches, new exciting products? Let's do a little dive into that.
Yeah, well, we already told you about the breeding program, which is so exciting for us. The other thing that we're really excited about is our Dark Heart branded consumer packaged good line, which we've got here on the table. This has been launching, right in the middle of COVID, which I think says a lot about what our team's been able to accomplish. We're packaging our packaged eighths and pre-rolls also, which will be on the market here in the next month or so. And what's cool about this is we're really highlighting that historic and current and future relationship that Dark Heart has with the genetics. So we've broken the product into 3 categories. We call them Legends, Head Stash, and Breeder's Choice. The Legends is really about those varietals you've come to know and love, and Head Stash is about new and emerging strains, and Breeder's Choice is the cutting edge stuff that Kay finds right out of the breeding program. So it's a really exciting way for us to highlight the impact that genetics work that we've done has on consumers. And what's cool about it is it really brings us closer together with our cultivation partners as well. We work with hundreds of growers across the state, and we're able to really look across that network to find the best of the best specimens of the genetics that we're putting out there. And, as a result, it's pretty impressive and really, really cool what you find in these packaged goods. We're putting out, we just launched a blackjack varietal, and we bought this blackjack flower. It's, over 30%. It has that, distinct blackjack aroma that just punches you in the face. It's great to be saying this is really the best. When you're buying blackjack, when you're buying the Dark Heart blackjack cuts, and you're buying the Dark Heart blackjack flower, that is the best expression of what that genetic can do. It's really cool.
I love that. And it seems like such a natural transition for you guys to go into. So I'm very excited for you. I can't wait to try it. And so I have one more question that I'd love both of your answers on, but what is your favorite strain?
You go first, Jeremy.
I'm going to steal yours, though.
Oh, shoot.
Well, I'm sure Dan was going to ask the same. I think Blue Dream is a big favorite over here for a number of reasons, right? I think people still really enjoy the experiences they feel when using it, but for the growers, it's such an easy strain of cannabis to grow, right? It's almost like a set it, forget it type of strain. And so when we're thinking about our breeding program for us, we want to create plants just like that, where they have the shelf appeal, they have the feeling the consumers like, but also the growers can just put it in their facility, grow it and forget it. High yielding, great THC content, great terpene profile. It's a winner.
Really? Yep. Yeah, no, Blue Dream is the standout on that front for sure. And, it really brings those margins up for the growers and helps them put more cost competitive product on the shelf, which is so important now. As everyone knows, in California, where the biggest competitor for the industry is the illicit market. So when we can offer a strain like that meets the consumer need for high quality cannabis and helps the growers produce a great yield, that's when we truly have a winner. I tell people sometimes, when my daughter was born, I said, we should really name her Blue Dream because of the impact that it's had on, getting the company to where it is and really helping us to get where we are. But if I had to pick another one, I would pick Dream Queen, which AKA Green Crack. We renamed it Dream Queen because, Green Crack, not a great brand, not a good look. But that one is similar to Blue Dream in having great commercial production characteristics And what I love about it is it has a very unique nose, a very fruity kind of tropical punch flavor, which is one of my favorite aspects of cannabis. I tell people cannabis for me is as much about aromatherapy as anything else.
Yeah, for sure. And one other thing we're excited about, Kay started a little breeding sort of contest within the Dark Heart team. And so we each kind of made our own crosses and we thought would be a winner for each of those. So we keep arguing back and forth which one of us is going to have the winning cross.
What's your pick?
My pick? It's purple punch and ice cream cake.
Purple punch and ice cream cake. All right. Keep an eye on coming soon to a shelf near you.
I love that. And way to make it fun too. You have to make it fun. But I just wanted to thank you both so much, and thank you to the entire Dark Heart team. That's about all the time we have with you guys today, but I appreciate all you're doing for the industry and consumers and farmers and everyone. So thank you again. And I just have a couple more items I want to bring up to close out the show. But if you ever need any updated information on all things Arcview, please visit arcviewaccess.com. And if you enjoyed today's tour, please make sure to check out our next one scheduled for August 20th, where we will visit with Aqualitas, an aquaponic and organic cultivation facility in Nova Scotia. And lastly, if you're not a member of Arcview but are interested in joining, please reach out to sales@arcviewgroup.com. So thank you so much. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you next time. All right.
Thank you so much for having me. And and thank you for the viewers for attending. We're glad to hear from many of them. Dan at darkheartnursery.com.